Okay, so picture this. What if the guy who wrote your country's national anthem was also one of its biggest critics? Sounds kind of wild, right? Well, that's the fascinating paradox of Rabindranath Tagore, a man celebrated as a patriot who spent his life warning the world about the dangers of nationalism. And I mean, this guy was a huge deal. We're talking about a true literary giant here. Back in 1913, he was the very first non-European to ever win the Nobel Prize in Literature. And get this, he wrote not one, but two national anthems, Jana Gana Mana for India and Amar Sonar Bangla for Bangladesh. The British even knighted him. By all accounts, he was the absolute picture of a national hero.
So that's what makes this so jarring, right? If he's this incredible patriot, why on earth would he call nationalism a great menace? It seems like a massive contradiction. To really get it, we need to follow his journey, how he went from being a supporter to a total skeptic.
So, how did this icon of national pride get so turned off by the whole idea of nationalism? Let's dive into his story.
He wasn't always a critic. In 1905, he was right in the thick of it, supporting the Swadeshi movement, which was this huge pushback against the British. But then, by 1916, you can see his thinking shift. He publishes a novel, The Home in the World, and it's basically a takedown of aggressive nationalism. The real breaking point, though, came in 1919. That's when he gave back his knighthood, after the horrific Jallianwala Bagh massacre. So, what was it that pushed him away? Well, for one, he watched the very movement he championed slide into violence and even terror. He was also totally against the practice of burning foreign goods. Why? Because he argued it just ended up hurting poor people, the ones who couldn't afford the pricier homemade stuff. Ultimately, he just felt that nationalism, at its core, was missing something essential. It lacked humanity and a real spiritual center. And here we get to the heart of his argument. He started to believe that the independence movements in the East were just copying a Western model of nationalism. And to him, that model felt cold, mechanical, and totally soulless.
So how did Tagore see the nation? He didn't see it as a people or a culture. Nope. To him, it was an organization of politics and commerce, basically a machine built for one purpose, to get more wealth and more power.
And this idea led him to a really stark conclusion. In his own words, when this organization becomes all-powerful, it is an evil day for humanity. Wow. He saw the modern nation-state not as a liberator, but as a potential cage for the human spirit.
Now, this is really important. Tagore drew a very clear, sharp line between patriotism and nationalism. Understanding this difference is the key to unlocking his whole philosophy.
So on one side, you've got patriotism. This is what Tagore really valued. He saw it as a deep, spiritual love for your own people and your culture. But on the other side, you have nationalism. And he saw that as a cold, aggressive ideology. Nothing more than the organized self-interest of a whole people. Yeah, he really didn't hold back. He called nationalism the spirit of conflict and conquest. The way he saw it, patriotism is about love and connection, something that comes from the inside. Nationalism, on the other hand, is all about power and competing against some other group on the outside. But Tagore wasn't just about criticizing things. He actually offered this powerful alternative vision, what he called the universal man. So let's check out what his idea for a better world looked like. His whole vision was built on this idea of cosmopolitanism. And this is a really old idea. It goes all the way back to the ancient Greeks. It's pretty simple, really. It's the belief that all of us, every human being, belongs to a single community, and we all deserve the same respect, no matter where we're from. It's about putting our shared humanity first, way ahead of our national identity. So these are the building blocks of his vision. We're talking about things like cooperation and coexistence. He wasn't pushing for some kind of single world government. Not at all. It was more about a global spirit. He actually had a name for it: spiritual universalism. And what he meant by that, well, it's a huge shift in how you see things. It's a world where the most important thing about you isn't your passport. It's your shared humanity. It's about seeing that same human spirit in every single person, no matter what. And all of this leads to his big idea, the universal man. This is his ideal person, someone who is deeply connected to their own culture, for sure, but they aren't trapped by it. Their identity isn't locked down by borders. They see themselves as a citizen of the entire human race.
And these ideas are still so relevant. The modern philosopher Martha Nussbaum, who was inspired by Tagore, argues we should be teaching our students to be, and I quote, above all, citizens of a world of humans. That's Tagore's universal man for the 21st century right there. Okay, so let's try to bring this all home. The final piece of Tagore's puzzle is all about how we can be true citizens of the world, how we can balance that deep love we have for our home with our connection to everyone, everywhere. And to be clear, Tagore never said we should get rid of our local cultures, not at all. His big goal was to harmonize the best parts of all civilizations into what he called a spiritual commonwealth of nations. It's not about tearing down walls, it's about opening up windows.
And that leaves us with a question that honestly feels more urgent today than ever. The challenge Tagore threw down a century ago is now ours to face. How do we love our home, our people, and our culture without closing our minds and our doors to the rest of the world?